This is the first in a series that explores questions about war. On a year-long odyssey, we found forgiveness in the battle-scarred rice paddies of Vietnam and hope in the bombed-out villages of Laos. Defiance in the rebel-infested jungles of Peru and change in the desert prisons of Iraq. We examined the tension between patriotism and economic desperation in small-town America and listened to those who were charged with leading men into battle. In the next 6 weeks, we'll take you along as we explore the devastating cycle of war. In the spring of 2000, a class of Marine officers graduated from the basic school here in Quantico, Virginia. It's a master's program for soon-to-be platoon commanders. I was one of those young lieutenants. We were the first of the new millennium. We thought we knew then what our future would hold. We didn't. The attacks of 9/11 changed everything. Afghanistan, Iraq, 8 years of war. I looked up 6 Marines from my class of 2000, and in the next half hour, I'll show you how war has shaped their lives. Drew Turner.
Black Hawk Down. That's what's running through my mind.
It's the nightmare scenario of every helicopter pilot flying in hostile territory.
We got a Black Hawk down, we got a Black Hawk down.
This was Drew Turner's second deployment to Iraq, 2005.
Battle in Najaf, August 5th, we basically launched out in support of ground troops that were in a firefight with Muqtada al-Sadr's militia.
The battle was dramatized in a program that ran on the Discovery Channel.
Ground guys were controlling us, and then they said, looks like there's an enemy mortar position being set up down the road. We want you to, go locate it, and if it's there, take it out. I was looking outside the window looking for the mortar position, and the next thing you know, we're flying building top level, maybe 100 feet, and the aircraft goes extreme nose high.
Drew looked over, realized the pilot had fallen back in his seat. Blood running down his face, he had taken a bullet in his right eye.
An AK-47 round.
Drew seized the controls, but it was too late to right the chopper.
We crashed in front of kind of a U-shape of buildings, and on the main building there's a big red crescent. So we crashed in front of a hospital.
Incredibly lucky, maybe. The other members of his crew were still alive and piling out. Drew rushed inside to try to get medical attention for his wounded pilot.
I'm in full flight gear, I still have my helmet on, visor's down, I got my M16, I'm like, are any of you doctors?
He says the Iraqi doctors were stunned, fearful, and confused, but they rushed outside to help.
The next thing you know, the ground troops arrived on scene and basically pulled the crew and ultimately pulled the aircraft out of there.
None of us wanted burning American equipment on CNN, Al Jazeera.
One crash in a lifetime of flying, a crash you walk away from, more than most pilots ever go through. But this was Drew Turner's second helicopter crash in 14 months. The first was even more brutal. And it happened in the opening days of the war.
On takeoff, something happened. To be honest, I can't tell you what. The aircraft took off, went about 1,000 meters in distance, and then ended up crashing. The aircraft, it flipped over. It looks like I got tossed out of the aircraft. The aircraft caught on fire. There were 4 of us in the helicopter in the Huey, and I was the only one to walk away from it.
Is there any kind of guilt that comes along with that?
Maybe a little bit. Was there something that I could have done? Was it my fault? Did I screw up?
Drew was tossed clear. He has no idea how or why. What are the last things you remember, like the last?
I don't. From the point of takeoff till more or less waking up on the hospital ship, that's it. Don't remember anything.
Drew broke his ankle and was sent home to recuperate.
I was the first casualty from my hometown. You wouldn't have believed the reception that I got coming home.
There were parades and photos, offers of free meals and free clothes. His hometown, Kernersville, North Carolina, went all out. They even declared May 6th Andrew Turner Day. Despite the warm welcome, Drew wanted to return to the battlefront.
I was itching to get back to the squadron.
Why?
My buddies were still over there in the fight and wanted to get back to them.
What do you fight for?
Fighting for the guy that's on my left and my right.
Ultimately, he did 3 tours in Iraq. He remains on active duty, now as a company officer at the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland.
First platoon, all present or accounted for.
He thinks the war in Iraq, a war he believes in, is having a good impact on the cadets he advises here.
The real reason for coming to the Naval Academy should be that selfless service to the nation. How you doing, Chief?
Rob Rudder.
Welcome, Robert Rudder!
Hey, guys. Good to see you.
The question is, what's a Marine captain with a chest full of medals doing on a game show, trying to prove he's smarter than a 5th grader? And the answer? It's more complicated than you can imagine. First, he's trying to uphold his dignity while in uniform.
What's the only U.S. national holiday that...
Don't let me fail out and embarrass the Corps on the first questions. And I'm going to say Thanksgiving.
He discovered that just getting on the show is really hard. Rob showed up for a casting call and realized he had lots of competition. Apparently, thousands of people think they're smarter than a 5th grader.
So they brought us in by like 500 at a time into this giant warehouse and gave us numbers. You know, they're like, number 278. I jumped up out of my chair, jumped over the desk and ran all the way to them like in a dead sprint and got like right up in their face and was shaking their hand. You know, my daughter thinks she's smarter than me and I got to prove that she's not. And then the people after me couldn't do it because then they look like they're copying.
You're walking out of here with $500,000.
Rob took his winnings, $500,000, resigned from the Marine Corps after serving 14 years, and went back to school here at the University of South Florida. What are you studying?
Organic chemistry and cellular biology, but it's basically just the prerequisites for medical school.
Okay, so you're going to go to medical school. Is that why you got out to go to med school?
That's correct.
And that's important today, too, because we all...
Rob says he thought about becoming a doctor as long ago as high school. But it was a devastating moment in battle that forged his resolve. What's your worst memory in Iraq?
I've been losing some Marines. It was right before Christmas. There's probably 5 moments in my life that I won't ever forget and that I really can't think about without kind of losing my composure. And it really forges who you are.
Rob says a young Marine with a sucking chest wound died in his arms. Perhaps because he lacked medical training, Rob was unable to save him. He hopes to become a military doctor. I've got to wonder, how do you go from being a devil dog trained killer to taking an oath that says, I'll do no harm?
Well, honestly...
That seems like a pretty big jump to me.
It's really not that big of a jump because our mission more than anything is, you know, to bring our Marines home alive. So my job was really to save the lives of my Marines anyway. I'm getting to, you know, save lives in a different context, and I plan on going back into the military anyway.
And so you didn't really have any background in restaurant other than... Rob shows me the location where he plans to open a barbecue franchise. To help support his family during the 4 or more years he'll be in medical school.
I'm opening that restaurant, so it's like I went to the corporate training in Texas, and you know, I'm standing there putting food in the smoker, and I'm just like, man, how did I go from, you know, leading a battery of Marines to, you know, to putting food in a smoker?
Like many former Marines, Rob longs for the sense of belonging he felt.
You've got this brotherhood that's kind of forged into you through a lot of trying times, and you start to identify yourself with that.
And even though he says once he's a doctor, he will never shoot at anybody again,
I don't think humans are wired really to kill each other.
Rob cannot wait to get back into the fight with and for his comrades.
The thing that, you know, made us join the Marines in the first place never leaves. It's always going to be there, you know.
Joel Van Brunt. If you had followed Joel Van Brunt's career over the past 8 years, this is where you would have seen him. Piloting a Cobra gunship during 2 tours of duty in Iraq.
Hi, I'm Julie.
But if you just tuned into his pursuits over the last 8 months, you would have seen him in moments he hoped would lead to pilots. Moments like this from his acting reel.
I like that.
Okay, cool.
Okay, some romance,
You're the one that's supposed to be in
but
charge.
really mostly soldiering and headbanging. And SWAT teaming on the TV series House. Joel hasn't entirely abandoned his previous occupation because, let's face it, every aspiring actor needs a day job.
My choices of being a part-time waiter or a bartender versus coming down here and being a part-time pilot, it's hard not to pick the pilot.
The real reason he chose to stay in the reserves when he left active duty is a feeling that, by now, sounds familiar.
I love being a Marine.
I like to believe that the people who send us to war, the intentions are as pure as possible.
For Joel, Iraq was a war seen from the air.
I could probably count on one hand how many times I actually interacted with real Iraqis.
He dropped troops into battle and provided covering fire when they were pulled out. He remembers worrying about a soldier who was shot immediately after he hit the ground.
I dealt with that for a good several days, about second-guessing my decision to put them in that zone. And the whole time, I was thinking, please, please, Lord, let this guy live.
He describes having second thoughts about blowing up vehicles that might be carrying IEDs when identification wasn't 100%. But he has no doubts about how he felt being on the other end of an attack.
I remember my reaction the first time we received indirect fire was just anger. Anger that somebody was trying to kill us.
So you go from being predator to prey.
Right.
And that creates anger.
For me, that was my first reaction.
Imagine how the guys on the other side feel looking up at you, coming at them, yeah?
They might feel anger too.
You think?
You have no idea what this means. Thank you. Yeah!
For now, the war is at his back. Joel is honing his skills as an actor, taking improv classes.
So what's worse, being waterboarded or a bad audition?
Oh boy.
Tough call?
I imagine that waterboarding would be worse.
Than a bad audition.
He's joined up with a small theater group, trading military discipline for artistic license. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, like any good Marine, Joel does have a fallback position in case he doesn't reach the stars.
Grad school at the Kennedy School at Harvard.
You have Harvard waiting in the wings.
Right.
Whose idea?
Whose idea?
When we come back, a Marine who may never come in from the cold.